What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode number 66 of The Unusual Suspects. Guys, it's not often. I mean, I love every show that we do, but when we have a guest that I really enjoy and I love, this is one of them. I'm going to go around. Besides our regular unusuals, Humberto, Brandon, Rob, our guest today is one of the world's best political strategists. He's a political operative. I'm not going to lie, I think he just edges above me in best dress, and whatever, we could argue about that later. But he's an author, and I just finished his book, The Man Who Killed JFK. Ladies and gentlemen, Roger Stone. Roger, thanks for being here, brother.
Great to be here.
I love it. And Roger, it's weird. You wrote a book about assassinations. We just had one a little while ago, like an attempt.
Yeah, and it's amazing, Vincent, the commonality. In other words, the things you saw in JFK's murder that were repeated in Pennsylvania. Really a stand down by the Secret Service. I mean, in 1963, there's so many violations of the Secret Service manual. So remember, Kennedy's on a trip that goes Miami, Chicago, Dallas.
Dallas is last.
And in Chicago, Miami and Chicago, all of the rules are followed. For example, any high building within 300 yards must be searched and sealed. That didn't happen in Dallas. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen in Butler, Pennsylvania. That building was 150 yards from where the president was speaking. Mm-hmm. There's supposed to be 6 motorcycle officers, 3 on either side of the presidential limousine. In Dallas, there's 1, and he's told to ride behind the presidential limousine. Mm-hmm. There's supposed to be plainclothes Secret Service agents in the crowd. There are none. Hmm. There's supposed to be 2 agents on the rear bumper of Kennedy's car. You can go on YouTube and see them
calling them off.
Calling them off. In the case of Butler, Pennsylvania, we now know that the Secret Service and the local police know that there's a man with a gun on the premises. He's been seen using a rangefinder. They know this for 62 minutes, but no one informs Donald Trump, President Trump, and nobody evacuates him from the scene, which is what the manual requires. There are so many violations here of standard operating procedure that you can't just say, oh, well, they're incompetent. No, I think this goes beyond incompetence. And now you have the FBI director speculating that Trump was not hit by a bullet.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Saying that it may have been shrapnel or glass. Well, there is no glass because the teleprompter is not damaged. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there is no shrapnel. I believe most likely, and I'm not sure level of illness, the bullet that grazed Trump's ear is probably the bullet that killed the fireman, Corey Compentori.
Oh, wow. And yeah, Rob, and speaking of that, I think the debate solidified the move for the establishment of Deep State that, we have to get rid of him. I think once that happened, Rob, and Roger, and they saw how bad he did, and they realized, listen, we have to move on from this guy. What do you think? That was the moment, Roger, where that plan was set in motion, when they were just like, listen, this is it.
Well, I think they had 2 options at that point. They said, we've either got to get rid of Trump or we got to get rid of Biden. Or maybe we get rid of both of them. Mm-hmm. It was clear to them that Joe wasn't up to a campaign. I predicted the assassination attempt in 2018 in an interview with New American Magazine. Wow. I said they'll try to impeach him. They'll try to bankrupt him. Mm-hmm. They'll try to throw him in jail. And I said they will ultimately try to kill him, 2018. And then, as I think you all know, more recently, I predicted that Joe would not run again. That was 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also predicted that Kamala would serve briefly as president. I may yet be right about that. We shall see. Final prediction was that Michelle Obama would be the candidate. I said it, I believe, on this show. Mm-hmm. Certainly said it on Patrick's show. Mm-hmm. I may or may not be right about that yet. It's too early to say. Mm-hmm. There seems to be a consolidation, but I think it's important. I never said she wanted to run. I never said she planned to run or that she hankered to be president. I believed when Trump's inevitability became clear, that they would prevail upon her, they'd draft her. Yeah. And this convention, more than 50% of the delegates are non-white. So it is not a reflection of America. And about a third of the delegates are controlled by 3 union presidents.
Wow.
So I still think you have a great fluidity, only because under this system, none of these delegates are legally pledged to do anything. They don't have to vote for Kamala because no one voted for Kamala.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, if she became president, which I still think is a possibility, obviously, she'd be the only president we had that no one voted for other than Gerald Ford.
Wow. And Roger, somebody, I think it was DC Drano, which I know you know, he tweeted or X'd something where he said, we were 1 inch away for having 2 people running for the president of the United States that nobody voted for.
Yeah.
It would have been, who would have been for the Republicans if, God forbid, Trump was murdered?
That's an excellent question. So the way the system works in our party, if Trump had been murdered, the replacement decision goes to the Republican National Committee. And there is no obvious candidate. First of all, I would argue you cannot nominate Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, candidates who ran and were defeated for the nomination. This is not a deal where the first runner-up gets the prize. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. I don't know who we would have nominated. It would have put us in a terrible position because there is only one Donald Trump. Right. He is completely and totally unique. His appeal is unique. Would have put our party in a real bind.
Oh, and Roger, and I want to go back to the assassination attempt. Kelly, can you play this video? Because I want to prove to people that Roger is a freaking psychic. This is, I believe, Roger, this is from you at Turning Point, which is happening this week, Kelly? Turning Point? Yes. Okay, this is Roger at Turning Point, I think a year ago, saying exactly what's happening right now. This guy is a time traveler, and I'd like Kelly to play this clip. Go ahead, Kelly, whenever you're ready.
A veteran of many years in American politics, I'm going to tell you something somewhat shocking. Joe Biden will not be the nominee of the Democratic Party in 2024. Kamala Harris will briefly become president, but the only way in their party they can replace a woman of color is with another woman of color. And yes, you heard it here first. The Democratic nominee for president will be Michelle Obama.
That's on the table.
They have already rigged their primaries. The reason that they have canceled the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primary is to put South Carolina, a state where a majority of the Democratic primaries or primary voters are African Americans, and they will allow Gavin Newsom to purchase the vice presidential nomination, but the Obamas will hold him up for $600 or $800 million to do so. You heard it here first. When Steve Bannon says it in 3 weeks, remember I said it first.
and Roger, is Steve Bannon? Is he in prison right now?
He is in prison.
He's in prison.
And we pray for him.
No, well, 100%. All the people that are wrongly, arrested, accused. So Roger, just going back. So everything that I've seen, and this is coming from a security standpoint, a military standpoint. The writing is on the wall. We know what's going on with, we know what happened with Lyndon B. Johnson and the orchestrated assassination on JFK. Roger, and you talked about, was it incompetence or highly orchestrated negligence? At this level, Roger, okay, who at the top would not only give the green light, Roger, because this is huge. I don't think Biden's involved because he doesn't know he doesn't know how to put his pants on. At this level, Roger, and we know who's really in charge. It's Barack Obama. Let's be honest with each other. He even said it in that interview on Stephen Colbert. He's like, if I could be in the basement with an earpiece, okay, you are in the basement, but there's no earpiece. You're just telling him what to do. At that level, Roger, does a Barack Obama, does he have any pre-warned knowledge before, or like a Hillary, or that they're going to do something like this? Because let's stop beating around the bush. They, by the way, because evil has pronouns, they, them, that Biden always says, they know we all know what the hell happened. So who knows and who's involved at that level?
Well, let's take it piece by piece. So there's no question that it was Barack Obama who drove Joe Biden from the White House. He decided Joe's going to go whether Joe wants to go or not. People I know who know President Biden tell me he's extraordinarily stubborn. He has a very, very high opinion of himself. And he was actually quoted by somebody I know on the Biden staff who said, when he was forced to throw in the towel, now I won't go down in history with FDR LBJ or even Bill Clinton as a great president.
Oh my God.
This guy actually thinks he's a great president.
Oh my God.
But that's been the hallmark of his career. He's you've seen him arguing about how high his IQ was, and how I was first in my class. All it was bullshit, of course.
Yeah.
So he's very, very, very angry. He got squeezed out. He did not want to go. And that was all orchestrated by Barack Obama. It was Obama who cut off the money. It was Obama who convinced Nancy Pelosi through her surrogate Adam Schiff to tell the guy to drop. It was Barack Obama who lined up George Clooney to do the op-ed for the New York Times. The media tells us the other way around. Not a chance. He orchestrated this. Now, he also did not immediately endorse Kamala Harris because I think he still has very grave reservations about her ability to win a general election. This morning's news is that he has endorsed her. But again, I point out to you, nobody here is legally bound, and their convention is not until August 19th, and that's a lifetime in politics. Let's see how sure-footed she is on the campaign trail. Unless they intend to hide her in the basement like they did Joe, she's not good on her feet. She's demonstrated that. And as for the $100 million that they brought in, how much of that is real? I mean, we now have a pattern of people giving hundreds of small or medium-sized donations, but when you contact them, they have no idea what you're talking about. Act Blue, what is that? So there's a major campaign finance scandal there of huge proportions. James O'Keefe has done excellent work on this just recently. Talking to a retiree, lady, you gave $300,000. She says, "What are you talking about? I'm living on a pension. I don't make 30. I don't get 30 grand a year." So there's and the Federal Election Commission, because it's divided 3-3, will never take action on anything. You go file your complaint, you might get a news story out of it, but how much of Kamala's $100 million is real and how much of it really came from Soros or some other fat cat through what is really just money laundering?
Wow.
And Roger, speaking of Kelly, I think, Roger, I want to show this. This is your tweet. But Kamala, I love this one. Kamala's effed. If polls show her losing Trump by August 1, Obama will push her aside for Michelle, who will only be reluctantly agree to run to keep her husband and his entire criminal cabal out of jail. Which Roger, when I tell you I've been telling people this, and you were sitting in that chair over 2 years ago, and you said it, and the moment you said it, it made so much sense to me that she would be the overwhelmingly favorite with the name and the woman, and she goes on these tours. And then, Roger, speaking of, you said this morning, and Rob sent this to me at 5 a.m. There was a video, and Kelly, can you play it? It's the video of Obama apparently calling Kamala and congratulating her. And guys, to me, when I first saw it, Roger, and Rob, you sent it at what, 6 a.m.?
Yeah, I woke up and saw it at 6 a.m. and it had been posted at 5:01 that morning. Which is a perfect time to release it because all of the morning news cycles will pick it up and this will be the lead story for the morning.
I want your honest opinions. Does this look like horrible acting, Roger? And does it sound like AI? And this does not seem real to me. And Kelly, I want your opinion too. Humberto, you ready? Go ahead.
Kamala.
Hello. Hi.
Hey there.
Oh, hi, you're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
Look at this.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me. I'm looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this too, aren't we?
Okay, by the way, Raj, I want to go to you. Hold on. Horrible acting. Who has the phone, Rob? Do you ever do this on speaker and you're doing this? That is the fakest video I've seen. And no, who says my friend Kamala? And it doesn't.
Well, first of all, if a former president calls you, you don't say, "Hey there."
Yeah.
You say, "Mr. President."
Yeah.
It looked very stilted to me. Almost as bad as Joe calling into the Biden headquarters the other day.
That was a classic.
If that wasn't AI, I got a bridge in Brooklyn I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
No, you're going to see more. You're going to see more and more AI used in these kind of political manipulations.
And Roger, and Kelly has the tweet last night. Trump tweeted about debating her because she's going around saying, "Did you see this?" She's like, "He's tippy-toeing debating me," where he's saying he's not going to debate her.
This is very clear. Donald Trump is the official legal nominee of the Republican Party. Yeah. As soon as their party has a real nominee, a legal nominee, then Trump will agree to a debate. But why would he agree to debate a woman who's not yet the Democrat nominee? She's not. Right. And while I would call it probable, it's definitely not certain. It won't be certain until they vote. It's interesting that Black Lives Matter, of all of the organizations, oh, wait a minute, they told us they're not organized. Pardon me.
No, yeah.
Of all of the entities has come forward and say, look, there needs to be a national primary in which people can vote before this convention. And, of course, that has been rejected. Why? Because she wouldn't get any votes. She got single digits when she ran for president. There's nothing in her 2020 presidential campaign or her administration of the office of vice president that would indicate to you that she's ready for this, that she's capable of running a campaign, that she's capable in 103 days of building an organization that can beat Donald Trump, who does at this point have a well-oiled and efficient machine.
Yeah, and Rod, this is the because I can't read it from here, but Kelly has it. Let me read this right now. So this is Trump. Trump said, given the continued political chaos surrounding crooked Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, general election debate details cannot be finalized until Democrats formally decide on their nominee. This is a strong sense of many in the Democrat Party, namely Barack Hussein Obama, that Kamala Harris is a Marxist fraud who cannot beat President Trump, and they are still holding out for someone better. Therefore, it would be inappropriate to schedule things with Harris because Democrats very well could still change their minds, which I still think is on the table, Roger. But a debate between those two, just Tulsi Gabbard eviscerated her, and just she has no chance. But you notice, Roger, the move now is she's a black woman. You have to vote. I saw a couple of interviews yesterday on X, and they're like, "So who are you voting for?" To an African American girl, she's like, "Kamala Harris." Like, what are you, nuts? And he's like, "Why?" And the only reason, she said, because she's black. And the guy goes, "Name one accomplishment." She couldn't talk. It was silent for a minute.
Well, I mean, other than incarcerating black people for the first time nonviolent crime of possession of small amounts of marijuana, which I find really objectionable as a libertarian. People who belong in drug treatment programs, not in jail. She has no accomplishments on behalf of black people, or for that matter, any people. She actually kept people in prison past their prison sentence end, so they could basically provide free labor to the state of California. And I read 2 days ago about a case of a guy who was wrongly convicted, and when the Innocence Project came up with the proof of that, she insisted on retrying the guy. He'd already done 18 years in the slam. She retried the guy. Guess what? He was acquitted the second time.
Good. Oh, mind you, and talking about free labor, it runs in the family, which is kind of slave labor. Her great-great-grandfather was one of the largest slave owners in Jamaica. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Wow. Owner and trader. So that whole getting free labor it runs in the family.
Yeah, I can't wait till she brings up reparations, because I think that'll be a part of the conversation.
Oh, that's coming, Rod. You know that's coming.
Because if anybody should pay reparations, it would be her. She comes from a long line of slaveholders.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know what's funny about this statement right here?
Yeah.
The second statement they released, the first one was when they were trying to set up a J.D. Vance, Kamala Harris debate.
Yeah.
That didn't go through because they released the same statement. Like, Kamala Harris, it's not going to be the VP.
Yeah.
So we're not going to debate anyone until you guys figure it out.
Quick
and
question.
this is the second statement that they're not going to debate Kamala Harris until she's officially said to be the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. They saw it coming. Everyone sees it coming.
Can I ask that? So, can you explain a little bit how the delegates process works? Because it seems like they have a ton of control over the Democrat nominee process, and I don't think a lot of people understand that too well.
They do, and it may be a moving object. So let me explain it as I understand it. So they have about 7,000 delegates.
Yeah.
The 700 super delegates most of whom are party officials or elected officials and who are overwhelmingly controlled by Obama, are not allowed to vote on the first ballot. I don't know why that is. There's a date, which I think is August 1st, by which any other candidate has to submit their name. So if somebody else is going to have their name put in nomination, they have to have a second, but you have to register by August 1st. If she's the only candidate, well, then she'll be designated. But I still think they'll be looking at the polls around August 1st. They'll be looking at the money. It'll be interesting to see if people will begin to look at where this money's really coming from, because I'm convinced that as much as half of it may be money laundered.
Wow.
And then lastly is her performance on the stump. I mean, she's never been a strong campaigner. Her comments are a world salad. She's not going to be able to hide. They're going to try to hide her in this period to prolong the honeymoon. She's on the full honeymoon right now. She's the first. She's the second woman. She's the first black woman. This is historic. We'll see.
Roger, and I want to Rob, I want to go to yours next to stay on Kamala. Roger, we all know Joe Biden is mentally gone. I saw videos the other day. There's a taller looking one. His face is all messed up. Who knows? And then apparently Jill flew and was 8 hours. She was in Paris. I don't believe any of this, especially with the CIA mask, but that's a whole different conversation. Who right now, Raj, who is running the show? Who? Because I know that he doesn't make any decisions. I know we mentioned Barack, but I'm talking about around him. Who are the top 3 to 4? And let's say, Raj, Anthony Blinken is up there.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
What do you think?
So I published a piece at stonezone.com, which anybody can go read. It's free, about the council. The council is actually a legally constituted group within the government. The Attorney General is
Merrick Garland
is one of the council members. The head of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, is one of the council members. Anthony Blinken, who's about as good at guitar as he is at statecraft. he is a member of the council. So you've got this little group within government, none of whom have been elected.
Damn right.
And I think that is who's calling the shots. It's a long, detailed piece, but basically the council has now put into every department an inspector general that has much broader powers rather than just the power of investigation. So I think that's who's running the government. It's like a small committee running things in Joe's absence. So they just present things to Joe. This is very much like the situation with Woodrow Wilson. Yeah. So Woodrow Wilson was elected in 1912. He wins only because the Republicans are split. Theodore Roosevelt runs tries to bump off William Howard Taft, who had been his hand-selected successor, but they fall out. Roosevelt challenges him for the Republican nomination, fails, runs as an independent on the Bull Moose Party, originally the Progressive Party, but one day they ask him how he feels, and he says, "I feel strong as a bull moose." So from that day forward, they call it the Bull Moose Party. Here's what people don't know. Wilson, the Democrat, is first. Roosevelt, the Bull Moose, is second. The Republican candidate runs third.
Wow.
So Wilson becomes president, but in 1919, he is hit with a debilitating stroke.
Oh, man.
He's both mentally and physically debilitated. For the duration of his term, they just hide him. He is never seen in public again after his stroke. And his wife, Edith Galt Wilson, with the assistance of the White House Chief of Staff, Colonel House, are running the country. When it's time for Wilson to sign an official document, she puts the pen in his hand and she moves the pen across the paper. So she was the de facto president. Now, in the pre-media days, you could get away with that.
Yeah.
Also, this is before they limited a president to 2 terms. They actually thought about running him in this condition for a 3rd term.
Oh, they're relentless. They want to keep that power. But all right, we're gonna move on. Rob G has a lot to talk about Kamala Harris and her border situation.
Yes. I don't know if Kamala Harris is the border czar or not, to be quite honest. It's very interesting. Let's take a look at the first article here. This is from Axios. This came out yesterday or 2 days ago. Harris border confusion haunts her new campaign. If we could go to the next slide real quick. This is a section of the article where it talks about Kamala Harris being the border czar. It says the border czar narrative has stuck, especially in conservative circles, and calls mounted in the spring of 2021 for Kamala Harris to visit the border. So it's been reported and then not reported that Kamala Harris is the border czar, is not the border czar. It's very interesting because she doesn't want to take acceptance for the duties and the failure of what's going on at the border. Yet here's a video of Joe Biden acknowledging that she was put in charge of the border.
Okay.
Play this video if we could.
I've asked her, the VP, today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help us. We're going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border.
So while not using the actual term border czar, he lists that Kamala Harris is going to be helping with underdeveloped countries that are sending their migrant citizens here to our country. She's going to work with those countries to stop it. Clearly, judging by the immigration numbers, that never happened. Let's take a look. I actually asked, this is Grok from Twitter.
Twitter's AI, Rob?
Yeah, Twitter's AI, because, Gemini's is kind of woke. That's the Google version.
Yeah.
Even ChatGPT is kind of woke. So I said, hey, was Kamala Harris the border czar? And then Grok got all smarmy on me. AI all of a sudden having a personality. Oh, the infamous border czar title. In March of 2021, President Joe Biden tasked Vice President Kamala Harris with addressing the root causes that make people migrate to the United States from Central America. Okay, let's go to the next. So this is them saying, no, she wasn't the border czar. Oh, that was supposed to be the one before. I'm sorry, Kelly. We'll get to that. Can we go to the other Grok slide? Because I asked Grok, I go, okay, was Kamala Harris the border czar? It said no. So I said, hey, what are the duties of the border czar? And it says, number one, coordinate with the private sector, civil society, and members of Congress to address the root causes of migration. Lead diplomatic efforts with Mexico and Northern Triangle countries, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, to stem migration to the U.S. southern border. So while she was never actually given the title of border czar, the Grok AI acknowledges and says, well, she wasn't given the title of border czar, but she was given these duties to be the border czar. And then you ask Grok, what are the actual duties of the border czar? And it lists exactly the duties what it said before that Kamala Harris is not supposed to be doing because she's not the border czar. This is gaslighting at its finest. They're sitting here and they're telling us she wasn't this when all of the reports indicate that she was. In fact, if we could go back to the second part of the Axios article, Kelly.
That one?
This is the second part of Axios where they write this whole article about how Republicans and right-wing media have labeled Kamala Harris the border czar. Read the editor's note at the bottom. Editor's note. This article has been updated and clarified to note that Axios was among the news outlets that incorrectly labeled Harris as the border czar. You gotta be fucking kidding me at this point. Like, are we retarded as a society to believe this bullshit? Because there are people that are believing it. If we could go to a clip, Kelly, I'm sorry.
And then we'll go to
I want Roger to see this. Roger, here's a clip of the media. This is fantastic. I don't know. Charlie Kirk tweeted this. I don't know who put this together, but this is a side-by-side comparison over the years of the media both stating that Kamala Harris is the border czar and then the same media outlet stating no, she's not.
Okay, go ahead, Kel.
That's great. Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People gonna have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
I think we've seen 40 seconds of the hypocrisy. So I apologize for the feisty language, but Mr. Stone, I'd love to hear your input on this exact gaslighting situation.
This is really clear. Just remove the word czar.
Yeah.
He put her in charge of the border. At his press conference just before he shot the tubes, when he was still fighting for survival, they decided to throw him out there to do a press conference to see if he could perform well enough to survive. If you go back and look at it, he says, I put Kamala in charge of the border and she's doing a great job. You can find that bite.
Oh, wow.
So she's not going to be able to walk away from that. But whether she's the border czar or not, this is the Biden-Harris administration. So when Joe Biden says, as he did in his address from the Oval Office, Joe Biden, or whoever that was, he says border crossings today are lower than at any point during the previous administration. That's just a lie. That's just a flat out lie. So she can't walk away from the Biden-Harris record on the border, whether she had the title czar, which I think some reporter picked that out of the air. It's not an unfair depiction. If you're in charge of something, well, you're the czar. You could have called her the border head, but then head and Kamala Harris, I'm not sure you want to go there.
So Roger, so let me ask you a question though. Our viewers, they get it. They're awake. They're not woke, and they're not brainwashed sheep. I mean, there are some haters in there, and you guys know who you are. But I think the reason that Mayorkas, in conjunction with the Biden administration, has obviously let the border be wide open, which is still completely wide open. We have a guy that works here at Valuetainment, Roger, whose friend said that the flight from Argentina was playing who in the finals? Argentina and Peru or
Colombia?
Colombia. Sorry, thanks, Cal. This friend, Colombian, Roger, it was too expensive for him to fly to Miami. You know what he did? He flew to Mexico, walked through the border, and got a flight to there, and it was
a football match.
To go watch a football match. I'm not even trying to be funny. So Roger, it's been a purposeful thing to leave it open. They don't care about the drugs, the fentanyl, the murder, the sexual assault. I don't want to say the R word to our citizens, our females. Is the main reason for it, Roger, to actually make to switch the election? Because I know they're going to cheat, because Ben Carson was on Tucker last night, and he said he has friends in Baltimore that went to go vote, and they were like, hey, do you want my ID? Like, no, hell no. We don't even want your ID. We don't need your ID. Is that the tactic? Is that the ploy?
Yeah, I think there's an effort to change the makeup of the American electorate. If you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles here in Florida right now, and you say, I want to register to vote, they will have you fill out a form. No one asks you for proof of citizenship. No one asks you for a birth certificate. Nobody even asks you for a photo ID. You just fill it in, you mail it out, and they will mail you a ballot, or you can show up at the polls and vote.
I literally just did it like 3 months ago. Didn't ask for anything. I brought all my papers because I'm a citizen, I'm a responsible citizen. I brought everything. And I just go up to the counter and it's like, what's your name? They took a picture and they gave me a license.
How's that going to change, Roger? Like, how is that possible? How are we not letting it happen? Like, how are we letting it happen? Because and then I don't want to hear any shit from the Republicans when they get their asses whooped and they're like, how the hell did Joe Biden get 81 million votes?
Well, I think the short answer is we are dealing with it now, finally. In other words, under the last 3 years, under leadership of the Republican National Committee, nothing was being done. So take the Florida Republican Assembly, excellent volunteer organization, conservative Republicans. They develop a pretty sophisticated program. They take all 15 million Florida voters, they run it through this program, and they find that 1 million of them are registered at addresses where the post office certifies that it's not deliverable. Well, that means one of several things. The person has died, the person moved out of state, they're registered to a vacant lot, they're registered to a building that is not a residential building, and therefore they never existed to begin with. And some are registered to post office boxes, which is specifically illegal in Florida, but they're still on the voting rolls. So this idea that Florida, which is going to be a key state here, and much closer than people think, because they have put abortion and the legalization of cannabis on the ballot as constitutional amendments, which pulls out a lot of Democrats and younger voters. I'll be voting for one of those two. That is, I think, designed to to bring out Democrat voters. Florida, we have a warped view because of the 22 election. The hurricane is a huge contributor to DeSantis's big win. Now, I think he would have won, but I think he would have won by 5. He won by 22 because he dominated the news for the final 3 weeks over his, I think, very capable administration of the response to the hurricane. But for people to think that Florida is safe, Florida is not safe. Florida will be a battle. Trump will win. But it'll be closer than expected. And the reason for that is the voting lists in Florida are not clean. They're not clean.
Rob, do you still have more?
No, I mean, I think we've pretty much proven the point that Kamala Harris, whether we call her the czar or not, she was clearly in charge of the border. The border has been a deliberate catastrophe based on trying to bring people into this country to sway an election. So what they have shown, the party that sits here and criticizes Donald Trump, criticizes Republicans, criticizes MAGA, and says they are the ones who are a threat to democracy. Look what they are doing right now with the anointed nominee of Kamala Harris. She is a god in the Democratic Party. Who's going to go to the convention? They're going to have an open convention with her after everything that's been going on over the past 2 weeks since Biden dropped out.
And it's pretty wild, Roger. And we just talked about this before we came in here. The ex-president of the United States, Donald Trump, a couple weeks ago, they tried to kill him. They tried to murder him. That's not even the talk of the town right now. And for the FBI director, Christopher Wray, that little rat, that scumbag deep state operative establishment, he drives me nuts when I see his face, Alejandro Mayorkas, all them. For him to float this, I don't know, it might be shrapnel, this whole bullshit. That isn't, like, that's yesterday's news right now. The main thing, and you nailed it, is Kamala. That's all they care about.
And also, he suddenly spits out that, well, we know that the guy they claim is the shooter. I'm not even sure about that.
I don't even think he got a shot off.
But he was researching Lee Harvey Oswald's role in the Kennedy assassination online. He looked up how many feet Oswald was from Kennedy. Well, wait a minute. They told us before that his entire online history had been wiped. So which is it? Right. Which is it?
Yeah.
It's to create the idea that he's the
lone wolf guy. Right. Yeah, Rob, go ahead, then I'll go.
Patsy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Beginning.
But it's very interesting because he's 22 years old?
20.
And has zero presence on any type of social media.
What does that say about him?
That's so weird to me, and B, unlike every other child of that generation. So for me, I have friends who have kids that are that age. So I know people that are on the internet at that age. For him to have zero digital footprint it just leads to the more suspicious questions. But back to what you were saying, Vinny, about everything that's being reported about Kamala and what you spoke about, Mr. Stone, earlier as well. It's very interesting that 4 weeks ago, before the Trump assassination, everything was Biden. Cognitive decline. Then it became Trump assassination. Not even a second clap. Kamala. We're not talking about the Trump assassination. We're not talking about the shooter anymore. We're not talking about Biden's cognitive decline, who's running the country. Now the focus is on the money that's going to be going to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris as a Democratic nominee. It's a weird, quick news cycle to try and get us to forget what actually has happened over the past month. And these are historical events that have never happened in history before, except for when you go back to 1963.
Yeah. Go ahead, Roger.
Look, I think this is a very key point. Trump has a very successful convention. So between the assassination, which evokes enormous public sympathy for him, as it should, because somebody tried to kill him, and a very successful convention, the very next day, CrowdStrikes, an internet security firm, claims that some complete computer glitch shut down virtually every airline, every railroad, every bank, many retail. People are stranded. It dominates the news cycle. Now, who is CrowdStrike? Why, that's the company in my trial that forced the FBI, first of all, to admit they never inspected the computer servers at the DNC, and then they had a report which the judge would not allow my defense attorneys to have in my trial, which allegedly proved that the Russians had hacked the DNC and that information had somehow gotten to WikiLeaks. 2 years later, Sean Henry, who's the head of cybersecurity for CrowdStrike, His previous job was as Robert Mueller's deputy at the FBI. How coincidental.
Weird.
Wow.
He admits under oath before the House Intelligence Committee that report was just a draft and that it included no proof whatsoever that the Russians hacked the Democrat National Committee. Now, at my trial, I wanted to bring Bill Binney, who had been the head of cybersecurity for the CIA, as a witness and present forensic evidence in which I could have proved that there was no hack of the DNC by anybody, never mind the Russians. Of course, the judge would not allow that. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy realist. The shutdown by CrowdStrikes the day after the Republican National Convention was designed completely to change the news narrative, to get Trump's attempted assassination and the successful convention out of the news cycle.
Holy crap.
Yeah. I was gonna say they found a sliver of social media presence for the shooter.
Yeah.
Gab, because the thing is that, and this proves that everything was wiped. He probably had a social presence. And Gab, there's a freedom company. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it.
It was like Twitter, right?
Yeah, it's like Twitter, but it was like the first free speech alternative to Twitter. They found his profile, and the owner and founder of it, like, he posted all the comments that he made. And guess what? Supports Joe Biden, supported the lockdowns, supported all the Democratic talking points, and he has all the receipts for it.
Let me say something. If this was a movie, okay, guess what I would say? Oh, the government, CIA, brainwashed that kid. He sat on the roof. And mind you, I saw somebody yesterday, Roger, who was in the prone position where this kid supposedly was. He wasn't on the peak of this sloped roof. He was at the level. And Raj, they got down and put a camera in front of the face. You can't even see over this thing. So there was no line of sight to Trump. If I had to guess, whoever was on that water tower, because there's a huge ladder going down the backside that you could do it and leave. Everybody's worrying about that pandemonium. Nobody's checking the water tower. This is easy money. If this was a movie, I would have been like, oh, that's the patsy, that's the shooter. If the FBI and the Secret Service are all pointing fingers, nobody gets blamed, because Roger, if he dies, besides where the country would be in freaking shambles right now, once we got everything in order, what happens? The Secret Service, Kim Cheadle steps down, and it's the end of the story. She doesn't go to prison.
That's right.
She just goes, I effed up. The buck stops with me. I apologize. They're not going to get her for orchestrating it.
Two things quickly.
Yeah.
Does anybody else find it weird that this kid that was, okay, so they found his social media presence. So it's a kid that was pro-lockdowns, pro-COVID-19 mask mandates, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
A guy that's exhibiting liberal viewpoints is posting those things on Gab. I didn't even know Gab existed. So even that's weird. Why would he be posting that stuff on, like, Gab when
you
he's
should be out there? Yeah.
And then the other question I had for you, Mr. Stone, you were 9 or 10 years old when President Kennedy was assassinated?
That's about right.
What? I know that's a long time to think back to, but what was the state of the country in the moments, the days, the weeks after Kennedy's assassination? Because for me, it felt like when I've said this before, it felt like the Trump assassination, it felt like 9/11 to me, where I watched the planes hit those buildings, but it still didn't feel real. And watching the Trump assassination, to me, it still feels like I'm in shock over it, that this guy was able to survive miraculously, 3 bullets coming within millimeters of his head. And the chaos that could have erupted, but what was it like in 63 after Kennedy gets assassinated?
The entire country was in a state of both shock and mourning. I remember reading the New York Daily News and looking at the pictures of the presidential funeral, where John Kennedy is saluting his father.
Such a moment.
And look, I come from a Republican family, but I was in tears.
Mm-hmm.
I was in tears. I remember it very, very specifically. Kennedy was beloved as a president, but he had done nothing whatsoever on civil rights in his 3 years. Nothing. After making huge promises in 1960, and he was not a sure bet for re-election. He was going to have a competitive campaign for re-election. I just find it interesting. First of all, I like Gab. I'm on Gab. I like Gab. If they've shut you off every place else, and many of my friends are still censored in other places, you can go to Gab. It's lively. There's a lot of anti-Semitism there that I don't like, but nobody forces you to read it, and I certainly don't repost it. It is a free speech platform. There's a lot of repugnant views there, but you can say whatever you want and think that's important. But in this particular case, where does a 20-year-old get these skills? The skills to hook up a detonation to explosives in his car, the skills to shoot with this kind
with
of
no sight, with no
this,
scope,
with this kind of accuracy,
fly a drone.
Very, very hard to believe.
Yeah.
Now, Senator Ron Johnson has said that a government briefing indicates to him that there may have been more than one shooter. But the most outrageous thing, we've all seen this, are the people in the video saying, look, on the roof, a man with a gun, right there, over there. And nothing happens.
Nothing.
That's the strangest thing.
Yeah, that's called a stand down. Go ahead, Brendan, because I want to go to actually your story next.
Okay. So FBI. So how is it that the FBI comes in, locks the place down, doesn't even let Congress people in, and then the site's just clean within 10 days? Like we saw the videos of them hosing off the roof, like breaking down the stands. Like what's up with that? I've never.
Same way they hosed out JFK's limousine before anybody could examine it. It was taken off and completely hosed down.
It's not how you treat a crime scene. So like, how's anybody in the public acting like that's normal?
Especially the biggest crime scene in United States history.
Yeah.
When was another president assassinated
63.
live on camera in front of the entire world to see? I know the footage didn't come out for years, almost 12 years later, but that was the biggest crime that ever happened in American history, and they scrubbed the limo just like they scrubbed the rooftop after what could be the next biggest.
Right.
And there's an additional film we haven't seen yet. So first of all, the famous Zapruder film, which even I got Arlen Specter, who was the chief counsel for the Warren Commission, to admit was missing frames. So the government sent it to Kodak in Rochester for processing.
Yeah.
And when it came back, it had been changed. But there's also a man named Nix. He's deceased, but his family, his estate, is still fighting with the government for release of his video. The government has never been willing to release it. The point, I guess, here is that it was in 1963. We're still not exactly sure what happened. I mean, I put forward in my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ, a pretty good, compelling case using eyewitness evidence, fingerprint evidence, deep Texas politics. Others have other theories. Some people think it was the CIA. They're not wrong. The CIA is involved, but it's not solely the CIA. Others say it was organized crime. They're not wrong either. Now you go to Ronald Reagan, who they tried to kill in 1981. They've never released the report on the investigation into Reagan's murder. But here's what we do know. John Hinckley Jr., who was convicted of trying to kill Kennedy, is crouching in front of Reagan. He gets off 4 bullets. All 4 bullets are accounted for. None of them hit Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was hit from behind and above. That is a point that Bill O'Reilly seems to have missed in his book.
Yeah.
Wow. So there's a lot of anomalies there. When they get Reagan, first of all, Reagan's missing for 15 minutes. James Brady, his press secretary, who was shot in the head, he gets to George Washington Hospital 15 minutes before Reagan. Where is Reagan?
Wow.
The presidential limousine has left the Hilton, but where is Reagan? My sources for a book I'm working on tell me that there's a struggle within the Secret Service because some want to take him to Bethesda Medical Center while others want to take him to GW Hospital, which is much closer. He goes to GW Hospital. When he gets there, they x-ray him and they cannot find a bullet.
What?
So he has a puncture wound. He's bleeding, but they can't find a bullet. They're about to sew him up. And when one of the doctors, who I have interviewed, said, this doesn't seem right. They open the incision and he does a manual inspection, a manual examination, and they come up with a flechette, which is about the size of a dime, and it's a projectile. It is shot from a gun that the CIA admitted in the church hearings they had developed specifically for the purposes of assassination. Jeez. You can go online and see pictures of Senator Tower and Senator Goldwater holding the gun up during the hearings, and it's noiseless. So I believe that Reagan was hit by a second shooter. Final point.
Do you attribute that to MK Ultra, like the thing where they have the patsy that's very visible and then somebody that's not super visible to the crowd?
Maybe. Hinckley has far more ties to Bush and the Bush family, as you will learn. But also Judy Woodruff, who's then on NBC, this has been scrubbed from the internet, but I have it, reports that there's a man who can be seen on a balcony above the entrance of the Hilton who appears to have a firearm. And indeed, when you look at the broader uncropped photos from that day, you can clearly see that man. So my next book, which is entitled Bushwhacked, the true story of the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan, will lay all of this out.
I can't wait. All right, so Raj, I want that book. Because I already have a signed one of the other book. I want that one too. All right, so Brandon, military weapons fiasco. What is going on?
Yeah, so disappointing and very interesting too. So the thing that kind of sparked all this for me, it came out the other day that from the Wall Street Journal, high-tech American weapons don't work against Russia. So turns out that our weapons that we're spending millions of dollars on are being defeated by Russian cyber attackers, and the Ukrainians are able to build more effective drones in their garage than the high-tech automated weapons that we are sending over there.
Is it millions or billions?
Millions
Probably,
what?
Millions or billions?
Or billions that we've sent over there, yeah.
Okay.
But so basically the very highly sophisticated weapons that we've sent over there using GPS and stuff like that, they've been able to like hack into these things and render them useless, and stuff that Ukrainians have made in their garage is more effective than what we have. And now this is concerning on many levels, like one being because, in addition to that, if you go to the hypersonic one, it's also being reported that China and Russia are ahead of us in the hypersonic missile race. But, how could these things be the case when, if you go to the next one, we have, the bigger budget, the next 10 combined, are the next one. 1 trillion out of the 5 trillion of our budget goes towards military spending. And then we're getting price gouged by the defense contractors. We're getting charged double what the stuff's actually worth when we're giving these contracts out. It's actually like one of the few bipartisan issues where they're calling out the defense contractors. But then it gets even weirder. So they started auditing the Pentagon for the first time in 2018. It's never passed a single audit.
2018 they started?
They never passed a single one since then.
Single one.
Filled 6 audits in a row. And then if you could go to the video, so there's like multiple accounts of trillions of dollars missing. So you'll recognize this one. There you go.
This is Rumsfeld?
Oh, yeah.
Let me hear this one.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
It's gotten worse.
That's Roger, to hear
that's nothing.
2 point whatever trillion dollars in 2001, they can't find the transactions, and he just.
Did you see the date on that video?
September
September 10th, 2001. The next day, September 11th, 2001, and according to certain reports on the internet, the plane that, if it was a plane that struck the Pentagon, struck it in the auditing section of the Pentagon, which was investigating the missing 2.3 trillion.
What a coincidence!
Look at that right there.
I know that's insane in itself. But so this is 24 years ago. But can you go to the next one, Cal? So now they're saying they can't account for 63% of $4 trillion. Next one.
Jeez.
Has our government spent $21 trillion of our money without telling us? Next one. The Pentagon's $35 trillion accounting black hole.
Dude, that's not it. By the way, I want people to understand. That's $35 trillion. Like
our GDP is $27 trillion.
Like, where the hell is this money going?
Exactly.
To?
I mean, I'm obsessively digging into this, but I just think it's something that we should all kind of be collectively obsessed about, finding out where's this money going, and why do we not have better weapons in Ukraine at the very least if we're spending all this money?
Yeah, Roger, we're like with that type of that number sounds like one of those Austin Powers $35 trillion black hole.
Was there not a news report just days ago that we inadvertently by mistake sent $6.2 billion more to Ukraine than had been appropriated?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was in the airport in Chicago trying to get home, and there was a veteran in line in front of me at the little store, and he wanted an energy drink, or I think it was a protein drink. And when he found out how much it was, he went to put it back because he couldn't afford it.
Oh. Wow.
And I said, dude, I'll buy your drink. It's on me. He said, wow, man, thanks. I mean, we have homeless veterans in this country, and we're shipping $6.2 billion to Ukraine by mistake. It's outrageous.
Yeah,
100%.
But Vinny, when he hit me with this, we're sitting at the house, and he hits me with this $32 trillion. I was like people don't understand. Like, they barely understand what $1 million is. Like, they understand how much someone that has $1 million, how they live. They don't understand how much $1 billion. Like, it's like a crazy amount of money. There's very few billionaires in comparison to the world population.
Yes.
And when you start talking about $1 trillion, like, I was just thinking, like, how to hide $1 trillion. Like, everyone that is a Fed or worked for the Pentagon will have something like, I don't know, $400 billion. So everyone be richer than Bill Gates if they were handing out the money to each one.
Oh my God!
Like it's a number that is crazy. Like
and unbelievable.
I don't know how the money's not showing anywhere because
Right.
that will buy a lot of weapons. Like the most expensive thing in the world is the International Space Station. Okay, that's the most expensive thing that we ever.
Do you know how much it costs?
That's $100 billion.
$100 billion.
$100 billion to build the internet. That's the most expensive thing we ever made.
Yeah.
And we're talking about 32 trillion.
35
trillion. So like imagine we could build, I don't know, I don't want to do the math right now, but like it's an amount of money it's absolutely insane. Like even if they were doing something crazy like building an underground city under the United States or whatever, like the hiding that type of money is impossible. I can't even think about it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
No, it's like 10% of all the money in circulation. So I just like where could they possibly where could this have gone? Like, is it a black budget thing? Is it like them just like kind of siphoning money off over the years? Because like it was 2.3 trillion in the year 2000, and then we spent 12 trillion in Iraq, and now we're 35 trillion that we can't account for. So like, what's going on?
Dude, that number, like, I'm still baffled because, and again, I know the audience gets, guys, like when you hear that somebody's a billionaire, it's like, holy shit, they made it. That's 999 billion to become a trillion, and there's 35 of it that we don't know where the hell
the whole war, all the years of the war in Iraq, it was 12 billion.
Trillion.
That's it.
12 trillion. 12 trillion.
Okay.
Yeah.
For how many years?
Like 20 years.
20. I mean, that's
20 years of war, moving equipment, moving people.
Yeah,
paying
people are
salary.
choppers are crashing.
Choppers
tanks
are
blowing up.
like,
But that's accounted for though.
Yeah, at least we know. You know, I feel bad, but I mean, at least we know where the money was spent. Rob, what do you think?
It's great. Well, I think all of where you mentioned our weapons and where are they? Well, we gave all our good weapons to Ukraine. That's why the Ukraine has better weapons than us because our good weapons.
They're building shit in their garages better than the good stuff that we're sending them. Like that's what pisses me off the most. It's like, okay, fine, like you're gonna rip us off, you're gonna siphon money off of us for taxpayer dollars to have a strong military or whatever. But if you're gonna have a weaker military or weaker aspects of your military than other countries, and you're ripping us off and hiding this money from us, then that's egregious.
How much money have we given to Ukraine? Like military aid,
200 billion.
So we gave them 200 billion, and yet people are making better weapons in their garage.
Yes.
Yeah. Then where's the 200 billion? Let's add that to the how much? 35 trillion. That's missing.
And Rob, just really fast, Brandon, I'm still in awe. I genuinely can't believe it, Roger. Because I know Donald Trump spoke with Zelensky recently.
Yes.
Right. Because let's say, God willing, Trump comes in, Roger, with all this madness, with the money and the billions and. What is anything going to change, especially with Zelensky coming here? Because Zelensky was one of the reasons of the impeachment, correct? Was the phone call, the investigation?
Yes, but at this point, I think even Zelensky would like a negotiated settlement because he's losing. They're losing.
Big time.
So all of this war propaganda in the United States of how the Russians are getting the crap kicked out of them, that's all false. Mm-hmm. Biden will not allow, or I should say Blinken, will not allow any peace negotiations. There are no ceasefire negotiations. There are no peace. We're not even talking. We're not even allowing the Russians and the Ukrainians to talk. Zelensky, I think, is now looking at survival. Yeah. He needs to end this war, too, because he's getting the crap kicked out of him. Biden and Blinken won't let him end the war. Trump, I think he understands when Trump says, I will negotiate a settlement, he's not kidding. Trump is the peace candidate in this election. In both theaters, very simple. In the Russia-Ukraine situation, you can get a negotiated settlement. Biden himself said it at the beginning. I'd be willing to give up certain parts of the Donbass to solve this, and then he didn't do it. So even he was willing to do that. And in the Middle East, this is really simple. Cut off Iran's money again. The sanctions that Trump put on Iran meant they could not even sell their oil to the Chinese. The Chinese would not even buy their oil because if they did, they could import nothing to this country.
Wow,
Trump had them frozen. They had no money, the Iranians, for their nuclear weapons development program, no money to subsidize Hamas and Hezbollah for the attacks on Israel. Biden is financing both sides of the war. And then he wonders why we have discord.
1000% agree. So it seems like the most dangerous thing a political candidate could do is try to act for peace, because the military-industrial complex becomes like this vicious animal that lashes out at you behind the scenes. If you
they took 2 presidents out because of that. JFK understood that the Bay of Pigs was a setup that was meant to push us into war.
Mm-hmm.
The original Bay of Pigs invasion plan included air cover for the men storming the beaches from 29 Panamanian flagged bombers that were supposed to be flown by Cuban pilots, because the whole premise that JFK agreed to was deniability. This cannot look like a U.S. invasion of Cuba. He only approved it on that basis. The number 2 man in the CIA, Charles Cable, canceled the bombers out of Panama the day before the invasion, but no one told Kennedy.
Wow.
So when the Cuban dissidents, the Cuban mercenaries, the Cubans, were being cut down on the beaches, just cut to ribbons, because the whole plan leaked. Castro knew where they were coming. He knew when they were coming.
Yep.
Then Curtis LeMay, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, head of the Air Force, goes to JFK and says, well, Mr. President, there's only one way to save the day. We got to send in the U.S. Air Force. And Kennedy said, no, that was not part of the plan. What happened to the Panama? Oh, we canceled that.
Wow.
By the way, Charles Cable, the number 2 guy who canceled it, brother of Dallas Mayor Earl Cable, who was a crony of Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Wow.
It's all part,
everybody's connected.
It's all part of the same setup. So in that case, they took Kennedy out because they wanted war with Russia. He would not allow it. He had also opened back channel discussions with Fidel Castro through a French journalist. He'd also, was sending handwritten letters to Khrushchev, but not putting them through the normal diplomatic channels, because he knew that everybody in the national security apparatus was pro-war. Nixon was taken out because he ended the war in Vietnam. They're very upset about that, because the war in Vietnam was very, very profitable. And he reached a strategic arms limitation with the Russians. The Pentagon was against that, as was the war machine. And then the final step, you can see it in his biography. You can also see it in the diary of Bob Haldeman as chief of staff. He was going to reorganize the entire intelligence agency because he thought the CIA had too much power, and there were too much power in the hands of the unelected bureaucrats. So he was going to reorganize the entire intelligence national security apparatus, and that was an existential threat. Wow. That's why we now know definitively, based on declassified documents, the CIA knew about the plan for the Watergate break-in in advance. They infiltrated the plan. At least 4 of the 8 burglars are still on the payroll of the CIA, are reporting to their handlers at the CIA. It is a setup.
Holy shit.
Hey,
Fascinating.
and by the way, and that goes throughout history. Anybody that wanted peace, JFK, MLK, Martin Luther King, Jesus Christ, Gandhi. You want peace? You're done.
Well, and the other thing we know that can't be disputed is every president who has questioned the Federal Reserve has been assassinated.
Oh, shit. That's right.
When you messed with the money, even Lincoln tried to do the greenback thing, and they didn't like that.
Right.
And they shot him in
Garfield was questioning the Fed. He was shot and killed. It's uniform. John Kennedy wanted a silverback dollar. He was fighting with them over a silverback dollar.
Wow. And done. All right. Last story, Humberto. Is it Brat versus White Boy Summer?
Brat versus White Boy Summer.
This is perfect for us and Roger.
I know. Like, I just want to get a little bit into the Kamala Harris campaign lunch.
Okay.
And this is the internet, Roger. It's terrible. I apologize. So, the singer, Charlie XCS, released this album called Brat.
Okay.
And the internet trend started saying, like, it's Brat Summer. In the internet, you have internet aesthetics, okay? So they started pushing this internet aesthetic of Brat Summer. That is the bright green color, trashy-looking pictures, And finally, when they announced that Kamala was running, the singer, Charlie XCS, announced that Kamala is Brat. So, like most artists, they're in with the Democrats, and she lent her social media. And so you guys understand less what Brat is. I took her own words and put a little clip of it so we can
Okay. What Brat means.
What Brat means.
Because I know what's Beyonce is allowing Kamala to use her song on the campaign trail.
They're all in it. We had the guys from Tenacious D, Jack Black, make disgusting comments after the shooting.
I'm so happy that they're
We
finished.
had Robert De Niro also coming forward. We had
everybody.
Everybody,
So,
you name it.
So who's this Humberto that we're going to see?
This is an interview in the BBC of the singer, the original singer. Her name is Charlie XCS.
XCS.
And she's explaining what Brat is.
What Brat means, okay.
Brat.
Sort of knocking on Brat's door.
It really is.
It's giving Brat.
It is.
I saw you posting about a Brat summer. What do you think of the Brat summer essentials? Because I saw you on like a speedboat. That's quite.
Yeah.
That's Brat summer.
It can go that way, like kind of like quite like luxury, but it can also be like so like trashy. Just like a pack of cigs and like a Bic lighter.
Yes.
And like a strappy white top.
Yeah.
With no bra.
Oh, yeah.
That's like kind of all you need. Do you know
Hang
what I mean?
on.
Yeah, there you go.
Here I am.
Perfect. What's the weirdest thing that's...
Well, if I was in that room, I think I would have ended my life. I would have seriously
It's over.
tried to kill
It's
myself,
over.
Roger. I would have tried to kill myself just with the tone of.
Well, that's her demographic, so
I
you know.
hate that.
You know what? I'm not even sure what any of that was all about.
I know, me neither.
I was just gonna say, like he's confused.
You
I still don't know what's happening.
Roger, we're working this together,
Yeah, go
but
ahead.
Kamala Harris adopted the aesthetic. She adopted the song and the green aesthetic, and I'm still like I saw that. I'm still trying to figure out what it is,
gotcha.
but I just brought it up and I want to talk about the
saw
campaign.
Jake Tabor talking about it the other day. It seems like that's like the propaganda they're trying to push.
That's the propaganda. It's a push because she's the most popular thing
I
right now.
do not understand what's
I
going
still
on.
don't.
This right here is a collage of the aesthetic. It's that green color, headphones, Vic lighters.
So it's a trashy movement, Roger, where they're saying that's the look. Like, see that middle one, Roger, where it's like lighters and T-shirts and you look dirty.
You know
That's
what?
Brat.
I will not be dressing like
Yeah,
that.
no, I don't.
Good.
I don't. Yeah.
It's like a Gen Z
if we
thing?
go, it is because they're trying to get the Gen Z vote, and this is what they're into now.
Got you.
It's beyond me. I don't understand. But let's go to the next one, and we can see the video of Kamala that literally took this aesthetic because the singer that came up with the aesthetic, she announced that Kamala was Brat, so her team reached out and made this piece of content. I don't understand either. I'm sorry, but we're gonna figure it out.
Okay.
This is what it is.
Yeah, 360. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You think this in the context?
Trying to make her
All in which you live.
She has no result. Speaking as an expert dancer,
Yes.
Every time I see her dancing, it's not good.
Something's off.
So if we're going to the next slide, I am still just as confused.
Where, by the way, this whole green, I don't know what the hell's happening right now.
I don't know what's happening right now. Let's go to the next slide. So this was the Biden HQ Twitter account, and they just changed it.
Her actual
official campaign account.
Okay.
To Kamala HQ in the same colors and the Brat typo, and that's what it is. And then if we go to the next slide, we can see the opposite of this thing, because the thing, she's riding on this young aesthetic, and this mostly manufacturer is very commercial.
Yeah.
She jumped on the aesthetic, and then we see the real aesthetic that this been going on since the beginning of the summer. I think Jack Posobiec called it. He called it White Boy Summer. Okay. And this is the aesthetic of White Boy Summer, you know.
Who's that in the top left?
On the top left, it's just aesthetic, you know.
Oh, just a white guy with a Uzi drinking a beer.
Drinking a beer. This is aesthetic of White Boy Summer.
But DJT in the middle. I mean, dude, I remember that photo. What a. Did he have like a Lamborghini or something in that?
Yeah, he
did,
had yeah, but this aesthetic is pink. It's the boys. Is having beers, shooting guns.
Yeah, ripping shirts off like the Hulk.
Ripping shirts off like the Hulk.
Your typical weekend, right?
My weekend, right? That's my normal weekend.
So if we go to the next slide, I brought up.
Is that Clarence Thomas with glasses?
This is the epitome of White Boy Summer.
Let me see this. Oh God, Kelly, play that. Oh my God, that guy's voting for Trump.
That guy opening a beer with a mullet.
Oh my God.
Mullet's hard to find these days.
It is hard.
Yeah. That's groomed like that.
even
my
Zuckerberg,
God.
yeah, he's jumping on the summer, like
By the way,
white boy summer.
you know what
aesthetic.
tells this is like an alien trying to be like, hey guys, I'm not an alien. Look at me, I'm cool. Which oddly, Roger, did you see what the interview that he did where he said like Trump getting shot and then getting up and pressing his fist was one of those badass things he's ever seen?
I did see that.
Do you think that changed? Not to get off your subject. Do you think really quick, Roger? Does he vote Trump this cycle? Because he pumped $200 million into.
No, he puts another couple $100 million into Kamala. It's a false flag. It's a distraction.
False flag. No pun intended.
It's a
'cause he does-
distraction. It's
yeah.
a distraction. I think.
So back to it, I want to ask, because the thing is behind this research, okay? The last midterm election, the biggest increase of registered voters was females and Gen Z. Okay, so they know this. They didn't do this, like randomly. It might seem really foreign to us because, we're a little bit older than the demographic and we're not women as well. Yeah. The internet functions in weird ways. Instead of being something concrete like a message, it's more of an aesthetic. That's why I showed all this
An
pictures,
algorithm,
all this videos,
all that
an
stuff.
algorithm of the things. There you can see the turnout for the last midterm election. So Gen Z had one of the biggest jump. Usually young people don't get involved unless there's something that they care about is in the ballot. So I want to have your take on this. Is this a good route? You think it's going to bring any votes for her camp? You think they can beat all the guys that are on the Trump train? I don't know.
Well, targeting is very important. Trying to bring new people to the process is very important. But also equally important is getting people who are already in the process to vote. The evangelical Christian turnout in 2016 was 78%.
Wow.
The evangelical turnout in 2020 was 63%. So, I mean, there's a huge amount of work to do there. There are 25 million evangelical Christians in the country who are not registered to vote.
Oh, wow.
They need to be found and they need to get registered. By the way, they won't all vote for Trump, but about 80% of them will, 75 to 80%. So they don't have a lot of targeting options. They're not going to target blue-collar, working-class, overwhelmingly Catholic Democrats and say Michigan because they know that the car industry is being shut down by the policies supported by Kamala Harris. So I think they're going to have a harder time getting those voters to vote than they think. The other question I would ask is I wonder if any of those voters are interested in ultimately having a job, owning a home, having financial stability. Biden continues to fudge all of the economic statistics. Yeah, the 600,000 new jobs he said he created, overwhelmingly part-time jobs. They don't tell you that part. So I'm not sure that this will work. But they have to target somebody, and I don't know who else they target.
And I think that's a good point because I think, as we know, Raj, Taylor Swift, she's one of, I think, the biggest celebrities on the planet. Her voting, like, what's her block of followers?
200, 300 million?
200 million. Like, my nieces, when I mess with them, and I'm like, Roger, I'm like, I hate Taylor Swift. My niece hung up on me yesterday. She's 10 years old. She's like, and then my brother had to call me back. I'm telling you right now, we're getting close to the point where if she speaks, Roger, if Taylor Swift comes out and goes, hey, Swifties, go, it's all brainwashed, go vote right now and do not vote for Donald Trump, vote for whoever the other side is, that sways the vote, don't you think?
No, we live in an age in which pop culture has influence. The pop culture, affects everything. But how many UFC fight fans are there in the country?
A lot.
Yeah. So I think Trump showing up at the UFC fights. I think the strong support of Dana White and so many of the MMA UFC fighters, their votes there too. There are a lot of unregistered votes there too. So we shall see.
Quick question. Can I ask a question off? So ballot harvesting, Democrats seem to be very effective at it, very aggressive with it. Doesn't seem to be the case with Republicans. How much of an impact do you think that has?
Well, first of all, it's legal in some states and it's illegal in other states. It's specifically illegal in Florida. You can't touch any ballot other than your own. If you do, it's a felony.
Oh, okay, wow.
Other states, it is not illegal. They have been better at it than we are. This is one thing I think, frankly, the Republican National Committee under the leadership of Lara Trump and with Scott Presler is actually doing a very good job of. We are not going to get, just in terms of identifying and turning out our votes, we will not get beat again. Can you make it too big to steal, beat the cheat, remains to be seen. But maximizing your vote is important. I think it is something we will do much better this time.
Oh, good.
I hope so, because, just finding out just all the stories that we're hearing, Roger, about people showing up, no ID, that's, I'm telling you right now, those people are going to be voting Democrat. Those people are promised the world. And I really feel, Roger, if you're coming over a border and you're following the news, one side hates you and thinks you're a racist, rapist. That's all bullshit. The other side loves you and welcomes you. I'm voting for the other side. I'm voting Democrat if I'm coming over the border. And I saw videos where they're pouring in. They're wearing Biden-Harris T-shirts. I've seen it.
Look, I got criticized on this because I got caught in an illegal video when I was at Mar-a-Lago talking to a woman who's posing as an activist, turned out to be a left-wing operative for the DNC.
Wow.
The problem is, if you read the transcript, I didn't say anything wrong. What I said was Republicans have to use every political and legal tool to ensure that the next election is honest. I also said, and this is, I think, important to put in context, is you have to know who the judges are. Let me explain that. At night, when the courts are closed down, every federal court has a duty judge. That way, if there is an emergency in the middle of the night and you need to file an emergency motion, you have to be able to reach the judge. So in 2020, when they shut down the counting in in Detroit, and the Democrats had the Republican observers physically removed by the Detroit police, the correct act would be to go find a judge and file an emergency motion to get back in there.
Yeah.
But nobody had the duty judge's contact information. The lawyers for the Republicans failed to have that. Same exact thing happened in Philadelphia. So when I said you need to be able to reach the judge, there's no lawyer in the world who didn't understand what I mean. Every single circuit has a duty judge because the courts close and they reopen. At night, you have emergencies. Sometimes they're usually emergencies pertaining to life and death situations, whether medication or medical treatments being withheld from a child or a family member. But whatever the emergency is, this is a standard legal procedure. Headline: Stone says Trump has judges in his pocket. No, that's not what I said. That's not even remotely what I said.
Well, it's an amazing point. I didn't even think of that, but that's really important.
I didn't even know that there was on-call judges. Like, one has to be ready to go.
And everybody forgot that they physically removed the Republicans from those things, those voting states last time.
Dude, how about this? Why are you boarding up? How many videos did you guys see of them boarding up stuff
everything.
not to see the counting?
Yeah,
and we didn't say shit.
Out.
Unbelievable.
Well, we as a party, we were unprepared. We will not be unprepared this time. Headline: Stone reveals Trump's secret plan to steal the 2024. No, that's not what I said. And then, having read all of the filings in the so-called documents case, I correctly predicted that the judge was going to dismiss the case. No, I don't know the judge. I've never met her in my life. No, I've never communicated with the judge. Why did I say that? Because I can read. And I follow Julie Kelly, who's on X, who's terrific, who does great analysis. I read every filing in that case. And I believe, back to my own case, I always believed that the appointment of Jack Smith was unconstitutional because he had never been confirmed by the U.S. Senate, and there is no provision in law that provides for his appointment. How does a private citizen get these sweeping prosecutorial powers without the consent of Congress? I believe that was a legitimate case. I was speaking on my opinion. Now I have left to saying, grab Stone's phone. He must have been in touch with the judge. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, real.
I have a question at this point. You said an honest and fair election. I think, but this time we realize that having an honest election, that's a tall order. Having a fair election, that's different. You said some states, they allow that ballot harvesting. Are the Republicans prepared to, because you know the saying that you say that don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Are they prepared for that scenario? Because that's a reality.
I think the short answer is I think so, and I hope so. It's being worked on by very good people, very hard. There are technologies that can be used to clean the voter lists. They're going to have to require some legal action because, for example, as I said earlier, here in Florida, they found 1 million bad addresses out of 15 million voters. You then have to go to each county board of elections and ask those people be removed. Now, it's funny, almost 60 plus counties have done so. The 4 biggest counties controlled by Democrats refuse. So they may ultimately have to go into court to get that done. But this is part of the hard work of winning elections and having a strategy. The people running the Trump campaign are highly capable. The people now at the Republican National Committee are also highly capable. You hear a lot of grousing, but those are mostly people who are jealous or job seekers. And I think we're going to have an excellent Election Day operation, operating entirely within the confines of the law.
I hope so. And I think Laura Trump said that she's going to have hopefully 100,000 polling station people watching, observers. So, I mean, let's pray to God, bro, because if not, I mean, if we smell something bad, it's not going to be good. I mean, I'm so happy the Republicans showed the world that even after they tried to kill the Republican nominee's pick, we didn't burn each other down. We didn't shoot each other. We didn't go to the streets. We didn't kill each other. We didn't burn shit. Everybody stayed normal. Everybody stayed calm. We know who the enemy is, and the enemy isn't each other. We all should know who the enemy is. It's them, they, their pronouns. And don't let them fool you guys because the future does look bright with us. Roger, as always, I love you. Thank you for being here. If you guys want to talk to Roger, ask him questions, FaceTime him and talk to Roger and ask him whatever the hell you want to go. Here's Roger's Monect. Go to the Monect app if you haven't downloaded it. Guys, I get emails. A girl was messaging me yesterday. She's like, I emailed you. I even Instagrammed you. I can't read them all. It's literally 500. I get so many messages. If you want to contact people, download this app. You can get any advice, relationship. Kelly's on there. I'm on there. Robert's on there. Humberto, whatever you guys want to ask in production, stories, politics, Roger is the guy. Guys, again, take care of each other. I love you guys. Be blessed. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe right now, please, because 60% of you guys just watch it and you don't do anything. But we need you. Have a good weekend, guys, and we will see you next week. Peace and love.